What's going on everybody, my name is Rico, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new here, my channel is about vlogs, series and tutorials. And in this episode of Hot to Thursday, it's time for some fine art. Before we start this tutorial, I want to say a huge thanks to Anthony Morganti. He's got his own YouTube channel. He gave me a shout out on his channel. His channel is about photography and editing photos. And that's why a lot of you are new here, so I appreciate that a lot. The whole reason why I made this tutorial is because Deepak Pacheri left a comment on my channel. He said, "Great video as usual. I would like to learn to do fine art editing on Darktable. I would be much appreciated. Thank you." So Deepak, this one's for you once again. Thank you for your recommendation. Thank you for your suggestion. Let's get behind the computer and let's start. And this is the image that we're going to work with. The first module that we're going to use is the shadows and highlights module. So let me open that one up, let me activate it. And once this module has been activated, all of these words are being applied to the image. Let me show you guys what happens if I draw the shadows all the way to the right. Now it's really brightening up the shadows. Now let me show you guys what happens if I pull it all the way to the left. Now the shadows are becoming a lot more dark. So let me undo that by double clicking on the word shadows. Because in this image I only want to drop down the highlights quite a bit. So I'm going to hit -70 like so to drop down the highlights, and I'm going to keep everything as is. So I'm not going to change the white point, I'm not going to change the shadows, so let me close it down. The next thing that I want to do is I want to add the local contrast module, so let me open that one up. The standard words are 120%, so let me activate it. But for those who are following me for the past few months know that I really like 150%, so that's what I'm going to use with this image as well. It's going to give the image a lot more pop like so. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the framing of this image. You can do this at the start, but I like to do it right now. So let me open up the crop and rotate module and just make sure that automatic cropping is on yes. You've got the keystones on none and you've got the aspect on freehand, because you can then move it down like so to decrease the size of the image. So let me reframe this for a minute. I'm going to use the rule of thirds and I want this part to be on the eye of the bird. So this little spot right here. So let me change it to the way I like and then move on to the next module. Like so, and when you're done framing the image, just make sure you double click it. And that way the changes will be applied to the image. And that's it. So let's move on to the next module, which is the vignetting module. If you don't see it over here because I've put it in my favorites, please go to more modules and find it in the list down below. So let me open up the vignetting module. Let me decrease the scale a little bit. And this is something you have to work with yourself. Try it out, see what you like. I'm going to move it up a little bit. Focus on the head of the bird, like so. Maybe decrease the circle even more. And then decrease the fallout as well, like so. So now I'm going to change the vignetting module. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to decrease the exposure a little bit. So let me open up the exposure module and let me decrease it by 0.20. I think that will look fine for this image. Yeah, it just took off the edge a little bit. And now the fun part happens because we're going to use the contrast, brightness and saturation module. And for that we are going to change the contrast, we are going to keep the brightness as is, and we are going to desaturate the image quite a bit. So for the contrast I'm going for a 0.30, and let me show you guys what happens to the image. There you go, now it's popping a little bit more. And for the desaturation, I'm not going to desaturate the image entirely like so. I'm not going to add saturation to the image, but instead I like to go to -0.8, so that's like 80%. There you go. Now it's got a nice and grungy feel to it, and I still think the image looks a bit grainy and a bit soft, so we're going to change that by going to the equalizer module. And the equalizer module has a couple of presets like bloom, clarity, but I really like the denoise and sharpen preset, so that's what I'm going to use. There you go, now the image is popping even more. It's really standing out if you ask me. So let me close down that module and let's move on to the next one, which is another exposure module. As you can see, I've only got one exposure module over here. If you want to change that, just click this little symbol right here and hit new instance. You can choose to go to duplicate instance and then it will duplicate the words that you've put in the first exposure, but I want to do something completely else. That's why I went with a new instance. So let me activate that module and then add a mask. And in this example, I'm going to use a drawn mask. I'm going to use a brush. And with the brush, I'm going to just click on the eye one time. I want to increase the brush a little bit. You can do that by scrolling the mouse wheel button away from you. So let me click once. Now the brush has been applied to the eye, but I also want to apply the brush or the mask to the beacon of the bird. So let me hit the control and hit the brush again, and that allows you to add several masks to the same layer. So now I'm going to paint the beacon of the bird. Doesn't have to be very precise. You can always blur it down a little bit, feather it out. I'm going to keep the feathering as is right now. As you can see on the circle, you can increase that if you want to, but for this image this will be fine. So now we've added two masks in the form of a brush, and what I want to do is I want to add some exposure, and I'm going to add 0.5 to really brighten up the eye and the beacon. Now let me show you guys how that looks. So I'm going to deactivate the module. There you go. And now I'm going to activate the module, and now it's a lot more bright. It really draws your attention. So let me close down this module, and this is one way of doing it. So this is a fine art image if you ask me. It's creative. I've given it my own spin. If you don't really like this because it's still got colors, what you can do is you can go to the monochrome module. It's in the color group, and just activate it and see what happens. And now the image is in black and white. So we've got two versions. The first version is in color and the second version is in black and white. Now let me show you a before and after. I'm going with the color version for the before and after. So I'm going to take a snapshot and I'm going to select the snapshot, but I'm also going to select the original image, and this is the original image. And this is the fine art version, and that looks astonishing if you ask me. So let's say you want to save everything as a preset. What you can do is click this little symbol right here and then create a new style and then give it a name, so like fine art, and then keep the exposure selected off because those usually change with the images, and keep everything else on except the vignetting. Hit save. I'm going to cancel it because I've already done it. Now let me pull up a different image and show you guys how to apply this preset to that specific image. Okay, we've got a original image right here. The only thing that I've changed from the raw image is the exposure. So now I want to add the preset or the style that we've just made. It's in the list down here, so please click this little symbol. Then click fine art because we've just named it fine art. If you've given it a different name, just click that, whatever. And then with all the changes applied, this is how the image looks. And this is the same exact look as the image before. I switched off the monochrome module because I think that looks a bit better. If I switch it on, I can show you guys how that looks. So this is when it's completely black and white, but I like it with a little bit of color in it, so that's why I switched it off. And this is how you can get the same type of image using presets or styles in Darktable. And that's it. I hope you guys liked it. Let me show you guys the before and after. So this is the original picture that we started with. This is the picture after I've done an edit to it with the colors still intact. Well, I desaturated it, but it still got a little bit of color. This is the version with a monochrome module added to it, so it's black and white in its entirety. And I hope you guys liked it. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you've got a suggestion of your own, let me know in the comment section down below as well. And I guess there's just one more thing left for me to say, which is make love to the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Hit that bell button to be the first to be notified when I drop in a video. And until next time, doei!